welcome to the Revenue Insights podcast for this week. And today I'm joined by Darren Fay. He's the Director of Revenue Operations and Intelligence at Instructure. Over the past 2.5 years, Darren has helped to scale the RevOps team, having previously worked at Claravine. It's great to speak to you, Darren.
Great to speak to you as well, Lee.
So to kick us off, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about your story over at Instructure, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, you bet. I have a bit of a unique career path. Originally, stepping into school, I wanted to go to school to be a fireman. So I went to school to be a fireman, spent some time working over at 29 Palms Fire Department. And I also did reservist work over at Orange County Fire Authority. Loved that. It was a dream. Loved working in that job. Decided we were going to move to Utah to live in a safer community, my wife and I, after we got married. And in moving to Utah, they don't really pay firemen very well. And so I decided to start over my career and kind of kick off, working in a similar role to what I had when I was younger, which was back in a sales role, and enjoyed it. I forgot that I had a passion for it. And throughout, up until I came into Instructure, I spent time working in various sales jobs, sales leadership, sales and operations leadership, and then got the opportunity to go into a smaller company, Claravine, which is like a marketing data governance software, where I was able to build a business development department as well as a revenue operations function within that organization. It's there where I kind of built the passion for RevOps and decided to kind of harness my focus around RevOps, and which brought me to Instructure.
Nice. And given, I think you've had 2 years and 6 months now at Instructure, it'd be great to hear a bit more around what the structure of the revenue operations function looks like. We were kind of touching beforehand just on the size of the business at Instructure. So it'd be great to get a bit of context of, perhaps a bit more about like the hierarchy and where you sit in it.
Yeah, you bet. So we have basically a revenue operations function as well as an enterprise systems function that sits in a different part of the organization. I would look at our enterprise systems organization as more of like our architectural work, where they actually do getting their hands dirty and building out the framework for a lot of the systems. And they also manage the underlying data structure for like our data warehousing and things of that nature. The revenue operations function, we have multiple different areas of focus within the team. We have, our SVP of revenue operations, led by Joanna Fankhauser, who has split the team into various areas. We have a sales and marketing BI function. We have a marketing function for systems, a sales function for systems, a CX function for systems. And then we also have a CX BI team, as well as I would call it like a ROI BI team, where they focus on the budget and they focus on like commissions and things of that nature. So if the dollars are being spent, it's going to be going through the ROI team. And then the other BI teams, like a sales and marketing, which is the team that I run. And then we have our CX BI team. I would focus that more on like insights, analytics, business intelligence, go-to-market, annual operating plans, recommendations to systems for making sure that it facilitates the needs that we do have for making the decisions we need to make as an organization. And the systems team would be more of a function of like the administration and day-to-day maintenance of some of the plans that are put in place.
What I love is really like how it's really broken down. A lot of the time, I think there's a lot of revenue operations teams, either it's, a single individual, or, perhaps it then breaks out then into a second tier of marketing, sales, customer success typically. It sounds like you've got an even, a tier below that now in terms of the structure. So it'd be good to understand, like, as a business unit, how you're working together, and how that business unit works with the wider business.
Yeah, it kind of goes into those three foundational pillars: developing a best-in-class RevOps team that was discussing with you earlier. A big key portion of that is alignment, which is like one of those pillars, which is making sure that you work regularly cross-functionally in an efficient manner. So when you work with, let's say, our enterprise services team, you need to weigh in to have buy-in, right? So you need to be able to include the right people from the right portions of the organization to make sure that you have the right insights to deliver the right results. So working on system architectural changes or recommendations, it's not just me and my team saying we want to do this. This is what we're going to do. It's bringing the right people in the room and discussing it, similar to like a panel where you say, this is what we'd like to do. Let's start poking holes in it and let's start breaking things. I find we get some of the best solutions from getting in a room, somebody proposing a solution, and then we break it. And that's probably how I'd say that we kind of function really well going into building successful plans.
I'd love to get an example of perhaps one problem that you were having, perhaps one that you got great results from. That's probably the best one to go with, right? What the problem was you were having at the beginning, and ultimately the solution that you got to, but really how you got there.
Yeah, I think one of the problems that I could use as an example is, when changing like a team structure around, you're looking at doing, let's say, like an overlay model. Making sure that you get proper attribution for those overlay reps, but also not overcounting contribution to the existing rep who runs that account or opportunity. That's complex sales motion to manage, and making sure that you have the right framework in place and the right process in place to manage it can be tedious. You got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, right? So if you're not making mistakes, then you're not doing something right. First implementing things, you have some growing pains, you understand what not to do. And, that builds on the foundation to make a more successful and meaningful plan. The people who come up with some of the best decisions in revenue operations don't do it just because they had a random idea. It's because they've done it wrong 2, 3, 4 times until they found out the right way to do it. Coming up with those solutions and mitigating those, it's all about reviewing the past successes and failures and doing a postmortem and saying, what can we do differently, and what are the areas that were painful for us. In that situation, we looked at one of the pains we had from the previous plan we put together was manual, the audits that had to take place and things of that nature. And so coming together as a team now, it's for next year. One of the things we want to look at is how do we automate more of that. We believe the framework is airtight, but it's more about how do we reduce the time it takes to manage it. And again, you break a few eggs, so you're going to notice new problems as they come up. You're going to solve one, and you're going to build on it until you kind of fine tune it to the right solution.
Is there any any broken eggs that stand out from that process that you really took the biggest learning from?
Yeah, I definitely think the area of opportunity of understanding the nuances with the extenuating circumstances. You have new things that happen throughout the year. An acquisition or of some sort that could throw a wrench in something. And you do the best you can in revenue operations to kind of mitigate a lot of the nuances, the special cases that can come up that can cause something to get cast off the rails. But it's how you handle it when they come forward, right? So understanding how to integrate a new piece and a new complexity to the business is as when I referenced earlier, getting in a room and just breaking things. That's kind of the motion that I like to focus on is, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if we do another acquisition? What if there's another business model that comes in? How do we see this as being a scalable solution? And just trying to break through every possible scenario you can. And you're never going to get it all. But then building in safeguards to say, hey, if we miss everything, if we got everything and there's still something that slips through, what do we have to catch this? And making sure we mitigate it.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier around the 3 pillars really of a best-in-class RevOps team, and we've talked a little bit through alignment of those teams. So I'm interested to know then, what would you consider to be the 2 other pillars?
Yeah, so the 2 other pillars outside of alignment would be coaching and professional development. And when we're looking at leading a revenue operations teams, there's several things that happen, right? You have burnout, you have confusion, you have a lot of things, you get pulled in different directions. And, one of the people that I mentor over in London, when you hear from other businesses some of the struggles that they have, oftentimes it comes from not having clear vision. And clear vision from your leadership could impact your clear vision from your own personal revenue operations priorities. So when I talk about that first pillar, when I talk about alignment, it's really about understanding what's important in the organization and what's important to the EC and your senior leadership team. And, if you don't have a clear vision, pushing to get that clear vision. Because if they don't have a clear vision, then the company's not going in the right direction. And everyone needs to be marching in the right direction. So you can get alignment across those areas, and then making sure you document throughout the way so that there's, transparency across what's important, so that you can always refer back to, where should my priorities lie at the given time.
I would love to know, what I'm really interested to know is in Instructure's example, it'd be good to hear what that vision is and perhaps some actionable examples of how that then filters down into how you're operating as a team.
Yeah, I think, for us, we definitely have some of our core principles, but, we want to be, winning a ed tech company. We definitely want to be, looking at being an amazing place to work. We want to make sure we're having a raving fan base across our customers and having a great customer success story, and we're driving value to our end users. When we look at our connection with that from the RevOps team, one of the things that I believe is foundational in like running that best-in-class revenue operations team is aligning your team objectives with that. Are you familiar with OKRs, the goal setting principles? I really like those. And for those who don't know it, it's objectives and key results. It was introduced to me by my boss, Joanna Fankhauser. And in going through that, it gives clarity on, what that overall vision is, and then how are you going to get there, and what's the measurable result, having it be time bound and specific, and giving you that spearheaded vision of how you're going to impact the organization and deliver on your company's commitments from a more granular view. One of the things that I think is important with that alignment is, discussing things that you're working on and making sure you have transparency in them. And so doing the OKR ritual or process from the top down, I think is meaningful, right? And having transparency in that, so everyone knows where your priorities lie at that given time. In doing so, I find you have less questions and about like, what am I doing here from a employee perspective? And it really drives value in knowing what's important. The kind of bouncing around a little bit, the coaching aspect of those three pillars, one of the things that kind of aligns with that is, you doing OKRs for the individual reps and making sure that they understand what's expected of them and what they are going to work on, but allowing them to come up with that, right? You allow them to say, this is the company missions. What do you want to do to impact it? And giving them the freedom to decide how they're going to impact the organization within the scope of what it is that our mission statement is. And then going from there to ensuring that the team understands what their success looks like, and having them we do something internally called success statements. And having the team member, I refer to them as a team member rather than an employee, but going in and putting in what their mission statement is for their role. So what's their purpose here? Why are they here? Then, understanding what the success looks like in their role. And then what are some KPIs to help them define if they've been successful. So how would you measure that? And, it gets forgotten sometimes when you go into work and you have a list of things to do. Let's say you have a laundry list of things that you need to accomplish. You've done it. How do you go home at the end of the day feeling satisfied, like you've done good and you've been successful? Well, most people don't know unless you help them define what success looks like. So if they can go into their day and they can have clear, defined direction for understanding, hey, this is what success looks like for me, they can find that point in time where they can feel satisfied with the work they've done and they can feel like they have brought value to the organization in a meaningful way.
I think that's obviously extremely important. And I found something similar here at Ebster, also using OKRs, of having the clarity of how, targets at the very top ultimately filter down to different units. So as you were talking, something that I was kind of curious around. So you mentioned at the beginning that in your role, you're kind of overseeing operations with sales and marketing. So do your OKRs align with their OKRs, i.e., in terms of pipeline generated, revenue closed, and I assume then is broken out?
Yeah, exactly. So I will set mine from a perspective of what is in alignment with the leaders that we support. How I have some of my team members broken out on the sales side is I have somebody who manages our international RevOps teams. They support our SVP of global sales, and we have somebody for our North America high ed and North America K-12 division, because our North America portion of the business is there's more people to support in that region. From there, they would align theirs with their leaders and align with also the revenue operations goals. So it could be a difficult process to make sure that you're aligning across the organization. But I think what helps is you having regular conversations about what priorities are, which is another area of that coaching aspect and being that meaningful team, is having regular weekly conversations to talk about what those priorities are. One of the things I like to do with my team is each Monday morning we go over our weekly team meetings and we kick the week off. And one of the things I make sure I document and highlight is, hey, this is what's important to me right now, and the senior leadership team and the organization. These are where I see your priorities. Will you tell me where you see your priorities? And align across the two. In some cases, mine might get trumped by something that they have that they're working on their end. And having that open conversation about what that priority should be for the week, and then making sure that they have guidance on what is that priority for that week, to make sure that they know if nothing else happens, this is what is going to drive the most impact.
Mm. The coaching side of things is such an interesting one, because that's often sometimes where you get a lot of friction between operations and reps. And by the sounds of it, you've really got over a lot of those speed bumps, I'd say, to get to where you are now. So what would you say is the secret to coaching reps and really getting them on board with not only the value that revenue operations brings, but ultimately can help to bring to them as well?
Yeah, I think we're fortunate to have a really good relationship with our sales team, and I think a lot of that comes down from two things that I think are important. Looking at the reps and the leadership team as a customer. You're looking at the sales rep. They have to treat their customers a certain way because they need to satisfy their customer. We also need to look at them and treat them as a customer, and you also have to kind of have a balancing act, because in a lot of cases in those RevOps roles, there's multiple stakeholders and multiple customers that have, and sometimes, competing views. And by making sure that you're building the alignment of priorities and explaining the reasoning behind the alignment of what you're working on, oftentimes clears up a lot of the concerns around like why something else is getting done for somebody else and it is for this person, because you can define the value and you understand the value and you can communicate it and you can work through it. But also realizing that in some cases, when somebody's asking for something, they don't necessarily want it as the end result. They just want to be heard. And so if you can take the time to listen and repeat back to them, so they are aware of you listening to them and taking that information and being honest with them and being transparent and saying, hey, listen, this may not happen in the way you're thinking, but we'll take a look at it. And this is what may come in a different way, but we'll take a look at it and see what it is. And then one of the things that I like to do is push back on value. So if we were to do this, what are we going to do with it? What is the action going to be? Is it something that's going to be driving a meaningful result? And then that way you can understand and kind of prioritize across like the impact of the business.
Mm. And that actually kind of brought me on to where I was going to take this next, which is from a prioritization perspective, certainly within how you're working with reps, but also more broadly within your role and within the business. Are those is that prioritization based off of business impact at the end of the day? And I guess more specifically, how do you then make that call? Because to me, in my head, it's, you've got a project and this is what we're estimating in terms of the impact of it. I guess a little bit more insight into what the decision-making process is that you have to prioritize.
Yeah, I think, it's really interesting. I think the main area is collecting the right amount of context from each request, right? One of the things we do here to eliminate like one-off requests or more time-consuming activities would be, we do office hours for rep level people. So twice a week, we have an hour session where people can freely join and come get some of their questions answered and get some tasks worked on. Outside of that, we primarily focus on working with leaders, and we focus on, hey, if they have something that they need, first go talk to your leader and let's see if your leader can solve the problem for you. If they can't, the leader will come to us. If the leader doesn't deem it valuable in terms of what he's got going on, then we won't hear about it. And then in that situation, the reps could still come to office hours to get some of that stuff addressed. So there's always an option to get something done, but it's done so in a way that helps prioritize what's most important. And then based on those requests we do get from those leaders, we take those into account and we say, hey, this is what I have. I'm going to talk to my boss. I'm going to get my priorities from my boss based on the workload that I've gotten from my team. We've evaluated this workload. And then we talk back and I say, okay, listen, this is what we think is feasible within this given time period. If we need to do this, this has got to drop. And we talk through what needs to slip if something does need to be addressed that's more important.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I'm interested to take us in a slightly different direction, having covered the pillars quite a lot already. In the here and now, and let's say over the, perhaps over 2022, is there a particular project that you're working on right now that you're passionate about?
Oh, every project I work on, I'm passionate about.
Sorry, I can't narrow it down. I think, I guess what's top of mind then? Perhaps even that you've been working on today that you're trying to get your head around.
Yeah, I've just finished a big project, which is our annual operating plan, and right now we're just focused on getting the overall territory alignments done based off of the annual operating plan. So we're looking at how to deploy each individual region at this point. So the good news is, I have members on my team who are, infinitely more intelligent than I am, which is wonderful to have, at your disposal. And, they're working heavily with their leaders to determine what the best course of action is to go after, their number for the year and how we want to do that as a business. And, making sure I help drive that in the right direction, I think is on top of mind. And in doing some of that, I think it comes down to, maintaining those conversations around, what our vision is for next year in terms of like where we want the company to go. So what are our current priorities? What do we want to be selling and where and how? And what's going to lead us to have the most bang for our buck in terms of productivity?
Yeah. I appreciate that we're probably not going to be able to go into too much detail in terms of what you've got planned coming up in the next year, but I wonder if you're able to speak to, from annual planning last year, whether there were any key learnings that you took from that, and how ultimately it transpired going into 2022 from last year, and perhaps learnings that you've now taken going into planning for next year, that played a key part in shaping that strategy.
Yeah, I definitely think one of the learnings from last year for me was making sure that you focus on the data, right? So understanding where you're seeing momentum, where you're seeing the tailwinds, and leveraging that and making sure you deploy it in the right way to capture it, and being careful to focus on the nuances as well. Because if you get caught up too much in the general fact of, hey, this is a hot area, we're going to go into this area, you may miss something. We did a fairly decent job last year doing that, and leveraging. I'm not sure how familiar you are with like a TAM, SAM, SOM kind of principle of going after, what we have in market, what we want to go after. And last year was the first time, I put my team onto that type of process and pushed them through it. And, it worked out well. And, I think the team was pretty happy with the way it was deployed from the sales side of it. And, just looking at refining that further into next year, with more of like a product centric focused, I think it would be a good year next year.
Was that spread across, obviously the focus on the TAM, SAM and so on, was that focused across both sales and marketing?
Yes. Yeah. I would say focusing on where the interest is, and then, leveraging the marketing function to go into those regions for sure.
And I guess by and large then, seeing as you're carrying it forward into next year, overall was a success, I'm guessing.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. It comes down to some of that, you have some of these plans that take quite a bit of time, and in order to do some of these motions, you can have it one of two ways to do new things, right? You can wait and hire somebody who has experience in it, or you can kind of coach up those people and focus on development in those areas. And it's kind of where, when we dive into like the other pillar, when you talk about professional development, and you look at prioritizing some of that stuff. In a lot of cases, you see in revenue and operations, somebody will come in and they will level up a role because they realize that they couldn't do something that they wanted to do, rather than spend the time and allow that person to have some breathing room to develop themselves so that you can take on bigger and newer tasks. And focusing on giving somebody and prioritizing the ability to have your team take the moment. And, I like my team to block off a half hour today to focus on stretching. So professional development. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a 30 minutes a day off of work for training, but it has to be 30 minutes a day that causes them to be stretched. It could be a task that they are not super comfortable with, that allows them to develop a new skill while they're going through the process. And it focuses on areas that they need to, improve in. And when you look at some of the coaching sessions, which you talked about earlier, one of the things that I do with my team is we do a self-skills assessment. So I ask them to go through and rank themselves. It's like a numbering system. And they say, okay, this is where I feel like I'm scoring in this particular area. And I ask for them to give context on why they scored themselves that way. And then we meet on that and we say, hey, listen, this is your perception of how you are. I'm going to give you some perception about what I think, or maybe others may think. And we go through those areas. And then we leverage that to identify opportunities. And in that process, we take those opportunities and we post them on a board. So most people may not be super keen on doing this, but we post the strengths and we post the opportunities for every person on my team, and including myself. And I ask my team to help me come up with my own opportunities. And we go through that, and we focus on making those opportunities strengths. And in some aspects, they could be being more strategic in a certain area, which could be met by stretching yourself in a new methodology like a TAM, SAM, SOM, where they may have not done it before. And, I think the key to making that work is building trust and letting them know that you're a part of it, and also putting your own neck out there to kind of highlight your own weaknesses so that you can also work on it and kind of build those up. But, I find that's what's enabled us to do some more newer and forward-thinking motions within our revenue operations organization, is because of the focus we have on the development side of things and the coaching aspect of it.
It's a really interesting approach, and to your point, I wonder how many people really appreciate the level of transparency. Personally, I really like the concept of it because it gives a clearer sense of what people are strong at, and not necessarily what they're weak at, but it's playing to those strengths, right? So on your point with regards to the data, it's something that we've been looking at as well, and I would consider myself to be terrible with the spreadsheet. So I look at it and go, this is definitely not playing to my strengths, right? So then it's looking within the business of, someone that is that way inclined and is far stronger with it to then pick up and run with it. And we've we've personally found a lot more progress with that. And by the sounds of it, that's kind of a similar case for you guys, where I wonder whether, obviously a lot of the time, and we were kind of talking beforehand, it's just, you're constantly being inundated with requests from left, right and center. But with that personal development in place, do you find that you almost have like ideas bubbling up from sessions that you're having that, play into those strengths that you've then really pushed forward as, I guess, like a more of a pioneering RevOps project?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a big area of it, right? One of the things that I've loved about the process is, you disarm the opportunities area or weakness area of somebody from being something that is painful to talk about. And it becomes more of a mechanism to help somebody grow and improve. And it takes the negativity out of it, right? When you share it openly and everyone's doing it and it's a part of what it is, and it's not about how bad you are, it's about, hey, let's look at areas where we can get that much better. And the way I like to talk to my team about it is, the more we improve as an organization, the more responsibility we can take on, the more improvement to the organization we can bring. And if we stop that, you're only as good as the skill set you currently have. And the company continues to grow and the company continues to develop. But if your workforce doesn't develop and grow along with it, that area of the business becomes stagnant. And there's so many new areas to develop. You talking about your spreadsheets. When I first came over to Instructure, my strong point wasn't like Tableau, for example. And I put that out there, and now I'm fairly competent in it. And that we go through there and we put some of these things forward to the team, and we let them know, hey, this is something I'm working on. You identify an area. I'm very transparent with. I wanted to learn SQL. This last year, I'm more business focused and strategic focused, and I wanted to learn a little bit more technical skills. And so I did that alongside it, and I was doing trainings with my team and discussing it. And when you get in the trenches and you develop yourself with the team, they also understand you're building the culture of growth and development, and it leads them to want to be better alongside you as an organization. And one of the other factors that I believe in is doing joint trainings as well, and joint professional development to make sure the team stays competent in like the interpersonal area. And you look at like marriages, right? They say you either grow together or you grow apart. And I think a team structure is similar to like a marriage, right? You go into an agreement to work together and be together and unified across your approach to different aspects of the business. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to focus on like a team training, and I let them pick, and we go through and discuss together. So this year alone, we've done 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. We've done Radical Candor. We've done Crucial Conversations. And every single time we do one of them, it's nice because, we can have a candid conversation and training around it and discuss like how we want to improve. And after every one of the trainings, you always see like some heightened level of awareness around that competency that we like developed as a team. And it definitely helps the team be looked at in a different light across the business.
So that's really interesting. Do you share like the strengths and the opportunities with the wider business as well?
Right now, no. Right now, we keep it internally with the organization. And the only reason I don't, as of right now, is it doesn't necessarily service everyone. But when I do talk through, if somebody's asking a question about something, this is something somebody wants to focus on. For example, one person I have who wants to focus more on, wants to learn more about the marketing side, and he currently supports more of the sales side. Making sure that he has those opportunities to get exposure and work in those areas. And I have one person on my team who is interested in a product route in his career, and he's more in the sales portion of it. So making sure that he has the guidance and understanding of like how to get more exposure into certain areas. And I live by a principle with leadership, which is that good talent should have 3-4 years, and then they should move up and out or over, right, depending on what their career aspirations are. And there's going to be a small subsegment of some people who just love what they do and that's their job, and that's it's great to retain those types of people as well. But the vast majority of the people that you get in your career to work with have some other type of aspiration, whether it be short term or long term. And if you can give through your coaching sessions some visibility into the route to get there, you have more meaningful time with that person. Otherwise, you have people who are going to say, well, I'm going to go look at this opportunity. And then you're going to find out 2 weeks before they leave that they're looking for another job, rather than you working hand in hand and their career development is a part of your conversation, so that you're a part of the conversations when they do have the opportunities that come forward. And you can, be a good advocate for them. I think you being a good leader and being a good advocate for the people who work with you, leads to more people wanting to work with you, and it leads to more development and people staying with you for a more meaningful period of time, air quotes, because anybody can be sitting in seat for 3-4 years, but the people who are really developing and really, putting in the work to develop their careers in that 3 to 4 years are going to do more meaningful work.
Mm. Yeah, 100%. And I think that the development side of things is so interesting because certainly within revenue operations, there's not like a central way almost of doing things, right? It's very much dependent on the business needs. And so retaining, employees that you've put so much time and obviously money into is so important. Darren, I know we're running close to time, so I want to ask you a final question now. If you could recommend one book to other revenue leaders, which would it be?
It'd have to be Crucial Conversations. The reason I give that book for clarity is as we talked about earlier, you talk about your customer, right? And the leaders that you support, being able to communicate difficult topics and being able to do so in a holistic and meaningful way, I think, does wonders for your career and also your ability to put new processes and plans in place, while also, being able to have that constructive conversation to make sure you're driving towards the right solution and not just your way.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent recommendation, particularly, often in operations, you've got these wonderful jazzy workflows and it really is a complicated matter for, people like me on the front lines where it's like, please, but just in simple language. Darren, it's been wonderful to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining. Before we go, if anyone wants to connect with you, learn a little bit more about what you're doing at Instructure, and ask any questions, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn and just search Darren Fay, and I'm happy to chat with anybody. I love networking and talking about RevOps, so don't be a stranger.
Yeah, I know you're really active in a number of RevOps communities, so I'll include a link down below so it's even easier for everyone to find you.
Thanks.
Amazing. Darren, thanks so much again. It's been an absolute pleasure. And to everyone that's listened to this week's episode, thanks so much. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Revenue Insights. If you want to learn more, subscribe to our newsletter and we'll deliver every episode straight to your inbox. If you have any questions, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. Our links will be in the episode notes. See you next week.